I would like to get permission to speak in English and continue this session. As some of you might know that Foundation for Critical Discourse Nepal has been from its establishment taking a motto that leftizing the left, because left are not being that much left. So we are saying that we are leftizing the left. With this motto, we have been organizing different programs, and I see faces of leaders from different parties, a central committee, and then student union leaders, youth leaders who have been regularly into our movement. I'd like to welcome you all. Myself, Karuna Parazuli, who is board member of Foundation for Critical Discourse Nepal. And today we have here invited you because we have a special guest speaker, Politburo member from Communist Party of India, Central Committee member, Comrade Jogendra Sharma. You pronounce it Jogendra, right? Okay. In Nepal, we will say Jogendra. Okay, Jogendra Sharma, who will be giving his keynote speech. And I would like to welcome him to our program, and I'd like to thank all the comrades, because I know we organized this program very late hour. I was receiving call from different comrades at 10:30, and they were confirming, and I'd really like to thank you for being here. Without any delay, I'd like to shortly give the context on what's going on in Nepal. Like, we see how right-wing opportunism is growing on in our left movement, and we are saying that it's leading or heading towards for fascism, and we don't want it. And we want actual left movement to be on the ground, reach out to the people, and we have a special tie with left comrades in India. And while our comrade is here, we thought that it would be good to sit together and discuss how the regional dialogue could be strengthened. So we are here. So without any delay, I would like to request Deputy General Secretary of Communist Party of Nepal, Unified Socialist, Comrade Jagannath Khatioda, to chair this session and also put forward his chairing remarks.
Comrade Jogendra Sharma, Central Committee member of CPI-M. He is from Delhi, a senior leader of CPI-M. And FCD team, especially in the chair, I think so, Dr. Khagendra, and friends, all participants, intellectual youths and leaders. First of all, I would like to welcome you in this program. We have a good opportunity here to share and experience our views with Jogendra Sharma. There, in that banner, we are looking at theoretical reconstruction of Nepalese left in the perspective of Indian left experience. If I am not wrong, both we have same type of problem. Always we are suffering neighborhood effect. Sometimes it is very beneficial for us, and most of the time it is always diverse for us. If the left movement will be very strong in India, at that time we can get so much benefit in Nepalese territory also. And if Nepalese people always becoming left, the positive effects will be gone in India too, in the border states also. That's why we have to think together to make a strong left force in both countries, I think so. Basically, in our context, we Nepalese politicians, we Nepalese left, Nepalese Communist Party, always based on the people, based on the mass right, based on all community right. Basically, I think so, what you experience, all you youth and cadres and leaders, but in my opinion, all people who are in society, and we political forces, political party and cadres, we always trying to hold that community organization, community development program everywhere, where the school management committee, where the community forest committee, where the CBOs, everywhere we are going to support them, going to handle, going to lead. That's why we are established in the society. It is our first very peculiar characteristic of Nepalese Communist Party, its activities and its role. Another thing is, always we want to join us to the people on development activities. Always we take their demand and go to the government level, go to local government, go to the provincial government and central government for the development activities to represent them. It is another our indirect force, indirect supporting force that leads to us to make a big communist party. It is very basic things, I think so. But now, the topic is not that. The topic is to how to reconstruct our mind, our mind setting, our culture, our theoretical base, our travel to socialism, how to conclude it. How to make our note to go forward, looking forward for socialism. But in my opinion, the socialism alone in Nepal, how much possible? If the neighbor country, the left movement is very weak, if how we can get support from our neighbors and a left support. That's why everything depends upon our coalition, our strengthening hands, support each other, and what will be the experience to leftizing the left. Are we really left? Really communist? Our character, our behavior, our policies, our program, are they representing communism, socialism? How we define ourselves? It is the most important question for us. Because of we are in government too, we are the very big forces in the country contest. So it is very peculiar question for us. But how they feel, Indian communist leaders feels about Nepal, and how to reconstruct ourselves from their opinion, from their survey. It is the most important thing, I think so. Comrade Joginder will focus what he experiences about it and how to go we togetherly. Just I want to say these short notes here, and after in the conclusion we have to make some opinions also. That's why thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade Jagannath Khatiwada. We'll get back to you. We'll not let you go, and we'll again have conversation with you. As you rightly said that we really need to leftize the left. And on that note, I would like to request chairperson of FCD and Marxist intellectual, Dr. Khavinder Prasad, to basically welcome our guest speaker and also just put forward on why this regional dialogue is important, why left should be together in our region, while capitalists all over the world are having a network. Where are we lost? Should we really have a network, or how we should be moving forward? Thank you.
First of all, I feel very enthused and happy, extremely happy to welcome Jogendra Sharma, Central Committee member of Communist Party of India, Marxist. The reason I'm so happy is, in my experience of almost like 30 years being involved in Marxist intellectuals or political movement, I had never any chance to be associated with, to have friendship with Indian comrades. And perhaps that was one of the reasons our intellectual capability, the party's intellectual capability was degenerating rapidly. I'll come to that point later on, but let me start with why we believe in leftizing the left. The basic, may I request everyone to switch off or at least silence the mobile so that we can have a very productive and meaningful dialogue. Thank you. So the leftizing the left. Actually, this is the title of an article which I wrote for German Left Party. They published it in their academic journal. And the reason we FCD people and so many people who are non-member of FCD, they are kind of associated and they are together with us in kind of psychological membership. So the reason we have been emphasizing this slogan is, unlike in India and Germany, a huge number of people here, almost the majority of population is a strong supporter of the communist movement, communist party and communist policies. But unfortunately, our top leaders, our entire parties, so many parties we have, most of them who are in power and who are close to being in power, like in oppositions, they command a huge, sizable number of representatives in the House of Representative people. They actually have become neoliberalized. They believe in neoliberal agenda. They believe in privatization. They actually do not have any agenda to publicize so many utilities, so many physical necessities of our life, such as education and health. Even capitalist countries have invested heavily, publicly, on education and health. If you go to United States, like for example, up to +2, education is absolutely free. Right? People are given food in schools. They ride free buses. Almost there is discrimination because poor communities have poor schools and rich communities have rich schools. That's we know. But at least the idea is schools should be publicly funded. If you go to Germany, the entire education system publicly funded. If you go to Japan, heavily subsidized and heavily publicly funded. Like even there are private hospitals, but the private hospitals are so tightly regulated, and then they try to extinguish the distinction between private hospital and public hospital. Because they cannot charge you as much as they like, unlike in India and Nepal, because they can charge you any amount. So even in capitalist country, if you go to Europe, or if you go to any like Scandinavian country, sometimes Nordic countries, then education and healthcare systems and other social security, transportations, banks, so many things, so many productive, financial and other social institutions are publicly funded. But our communist parties, our left parties, actually had championed the idea of privatization, private sectors. They emphasize much on private sector as an engine of growth, which actually is not true. The engine of growth always, even in the capitalist society, is a public sector. For example, if you think of your smartphone, how many of you know, or very few of us know that the smartphone was publicly funded by the government. So the smartphone is not the invention or innovation of capitalist system. It is actually the invention of innovations of a socialist system. The government of the United States actually heavily funded research institutes so that they were able to produce this smartphone. Look at the camera that we use. All of the tiny cameras, small camera that we have been using, they are publicly funded in NASA, right? For the space thing. So there are so many things, like for example, look at computer, that was publicly funded. Look at internet. Internet was not a private innovation. Internet was a public innovation. So even in the capitalist society, a lot of things, productive sector, service sector, education and health are publicly funded. But our communist parties and leaders who were in power for quite a long time, they have this opportunity, they actually were pushing, implementing, enforcing neoliberal agenda. That's why we thought that, unlike in India, in which there is no huge supporter of left or communist movement, we have an enormous support from the public, young people as well as old people, for the left party and the communist party. That is the reason, and if that is the situation, what is the historical task of the left in Nepal? Then we formulated that, leftizing the left. Let us make this population actually left. They already want to be left, they already support left agenda, they are already left in the heart, in the core of their heart, but they need some kind of leftization. Maybe some party education, maybe some Marxist education, maybe some left education. That is why we emphasize this idea. But it cannot be applied in perhaps India or Germany, because in Germany, left parties are losing election. The other one, which is left center, has actually gained more seats. In India, the situation is not that good. But in India, maybe finding people who support left movement is the historical task, I guess. But here, the historical task is different. You already have people who support left parties, left movement in communist ideas, right? So many people are fan of Marx here, right? So many people are fan of Hugo Chavez. So we already have a huge number of people. That's why we needed leftizing the left, which has become de-leftized. So that was the idea. And So we also believe in some possible degree of internationalism, or at least regionalism. Internationalism is the core, is the DNA of the socialist movement. There was a debate in times of Lenin and Roja, in which some people were emphasizing, actually almost there was a unanimity that without revolution everywhere, no revolution in any country can survive. That was pretty much Lenin. And Roja had the same opinion. So many people have the same opinion. Yeah, so many people have the same opinion. So yes, and then internationalism was actually core. They used to firmly believe that building socialism in one country is entirely impossible, not just almost impossible. It was entirely impossible because the workers' state, the socialist state, cannot survive without accompanying revolution in a neighboring countries. That was pretty much Lenin. So, but later on, Stalin was kind of building socialism, and then they theorized that socialism in one country is possible, and they were trying to build socialism in USSR. And then USSR collapsed. Lenin was actually hypothesizing or predicting that if you just create a workers' state in Russia, or without accompanying workers' state in Germany or a neighboring state, the Russian workers' state will certainly collapse. That was what Lenin said. But yeah, internationalism for last 50 years, or more than 50 years, let me say perhaps after the Second World War, it has become really, really weak. And there are no international institution, overarching international institution in which all Communist Party of the world can be included. We desperately lack that, but we firmly believe that whatever the material condition permits us, we need to develop some sense of, some degree of internationalism. That is why we have been looking for a chance to be associated, to be friend with some Indian comrades when we got this chance. So, but the problem here in Nepal is not that we different countries are separated, like different Communist Party of the different country do not have an intimate relationship. Not only that, some countries are pushing, some Communist parties are pushing themselves in the directions of what we call right-wingism, or some neoliberal agenda. They carry neoliberal agenda, and we simultaneously have to fight this. And the problem, the reason we do not have a regional or at least international dialogue, one of the inevitable consequence of that is de-intellectualization of the left movement, which is very serious. Because when I say intellectualization of the left movement, I'm not saying ivory type intellectuals from the university whose things, whose writing, whose works, whose speech actually ordinary people do not understand. Intellectualizing the left movement means imparting entire left movement in the people with necessary knowledge, so then they can bring about transformation. They can challenge capitalism that they have to face every day. They can resist all capitalist suppressive power, their state power, violent power, non-violent power, or their propaganda machinery. That's why intellectualization is very important. We firmly believe as FCD, we firmly believe, all of us who are here firmly believe that some degree of intellectualization has to begin from somewhere. So, but Marx pretty much clearly said, philosophy finds its physical power in proletariat, and proletariat finds its intellectual power, academic power in philosophy. So you cannot have a successful socialist movement, whether you run a movement to overthrow capitalism or whether you run a government after overthrowing capitalism. You need to have adequate number of intelligent, educated people. It's not educated means like the bourgeoisie university education. Well-educated people who can actually understand how capitalism works and how transformation is possible, whether transformation is possible or whether it is not possible. So without deeply, adequately understanding capitalism, its power, its international network, its national networks, its allies, its friends, its foes, enemies, and everybody, all of that, then we cannot transform capitalism, or we cannot overthrow. Sometimes we say overthrow, but nowadays we say transform, because we believe in a peaceful transformation of capitalism to socialism. Overthrowing might be a kind of violent word. So yeah, but in some cases overthrow is necessary in other countries. So I'm not saying that, I'm not making a dictation that all countries have to transform. Some countries can overthrow capitalism if the situation permit them. So that is the reason we believe in intellectualization, because when we exchange our ideas and views and experience with each other, when we exchange our reading groups with each other, then we certainly will enrich our understanding of capitalism and socialism both, and how capitalism works and how we can transform capitalism. But a lot of people in our movement are clueless. Everybody talks about pro-socialism, movements towards pro-socialism, but nobody actually knows how to move from here to pro-socialist transformation. We all of us are actually clueless in that sense because we did not have a debate on that. We have not exchanged our ideas with communist parties or with their experience. Even in India, they have a very successful experimentations in pretty much successful by any measurement. In India, Kerala, when there was a COVID, the entire Indian states were suffering so heavily from COVID, but Kerala was doing great, much better than many European states. It was pretty much doing, it was mobilizing millions of the people to fight COVID, but we have not shared that, we have not exchanged that experience. Very bad for us, unfortunately. Perhaps if we had been able to, if our parties are able to exchange our ideas, Nepal government and Nepalese people could have done much better than they did, and we could have saved maybe thousands of the lives which actually they were needless death. So that is the reason we believe in intellectualizing the left. So yes, I should like to conclude here at this moment, and because we were short of a time. So so thank you very much for coming here, and thank everybody for coming here. Thank you.
धन्यवाद डाक्टर प्रसाई। मैले अघि पनि भने यहाँ विभिन्न दलका युवा विद्यार्थी साथीहरू केन्द्रीय कमिटीका नेताहरू पनि हुनुहुन्छ। मैले भर्खरै देखेँ नेपाल कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी एकीकृत समाजवादीको पोलिट ब्युरो सदस्य कमरेड दिलु पन्त हुनुहुन्छ। I'd like to borrow the word from Dr. Prasad that how the problem of de-intellectualization in the Marxist movement, we are saying it. And if we see the context of India with the rise of Modi government, the Hindutva forces growing, and they killing left activists, progressive forces, and we also see how the influence of that Hindutva has been seen. We say it's undisclosed, but there is supposed to be a tie with some of the Communist Party in Nepal, and which is really a fear for left who are fighting on the ground. And when they are saying that the left movement is being not popular among the public in India, we see how Modi government took back the farmers bill, and the farmers were actually struggling from the road. So that is the example of again giving hope to the left force. So I would like to request Comrade Jogendra Sharma to discuss about this issue, and also put forward like how youths and even left in Nepal and also in India, we could work together to flourish this dialogue and strengthen our left movement.
Comrades, we have a very rich experience in India. Almost 100 years ago, in 1921, Communist Party of India was formed in Tashkent. We have completed 100 years. Such a long experience. And with that experience, we have come to certain conclusions. There was a time when Communist International was there, and communist parties, Communist International took initiative to help forming the communist parties in various countries, but experience had shown that no communist movement can be developed throughout the world from one center. That is our experience. Take for example Chinese Revolution. CPC, after the formation of CPC, the Communist International discussed the situation in China and evolved a strategy. Comrade Mao Zedong rejected that thesis. No, we know our country, we know the situation, we know the internal contradiction, and it is we only will decide what path we should take. What should be the strategy of the Chinese Revolution? Had they accepted the Communist International thesis, perhaps Chinese Revolution would have gone the way the Indian Revolution has gone. In India, Indian Revolution is a delayed revolution. Because in 20s, the prestige of Communist Party of Russia, CPSU, was so high that many parties thought perhaps what they are advising is good for our country. But we couldn't check out any program. Finally, you see, after the Chinese Revolution, certain differences came in the international communist movement. And then finally, I'm not going into that history, entire history, but most of the Communist Party came to this experience, this understanding that Communist parties must have fraternal relations, exchange our experiences, our views, help each other, but no Communist party should interfere in the internal matter of the Communist Party of other country. This relation should be based on equality and non-interference, while at the same time exchanging our views, understanding each other and helping each other. And mobilizing support in their respective countries for the movements, mass movements, class movements which are going on throughout the world and against imperialism, mobilize the people. That is our experience. And we work on that basis. We in India checked out our strategy. Society is to be analyzed. State power is to be characterized. No Communist party can advance without characterizing the state power. What is the class character of the state? Until we know what is the class character, who are the ruling classes, how can we throw them out of power? How can we change the system? So we must have our class enemies against whom we want to conduct revolution very clearly. We should know them. And we came to conclusion in India that in India it is a bourgeois landlord alliance led by big bourgeoisie, monopoly bourgeoisie, which is ruling the country. They are the exploiting classes. And the direction of attack of People's Democratic Revolution is against them. But this monopoly bourgeoisie is having increasingly collaborating with foreign finance capital. And that is why our direction in India is against not only landlord and bourgeois classes, but against imperialism as well. So against these three forces, we consider these three forces the enemy of Indian people. They are the enemies, and we are very clear in our mind, in our theoretical conception, strategical line, that these are the three classes. So in each country, Communist Party have to identify, you want to make, without revolution, no socialism can be built. How the revolution will come, peacefully, violently, in what manner it will come, that is a different matter. That each party has to decide according to their internal situations, you see. But purpose is what? Socialism is what? We, when talk about building socialism, the first question is, socialism is what? That is how we define socialism. Exploitation, as Marx said, exploitation of man by man must be finished. It should not be tolerated. How in socialism, ruling classes, when thrown out of power, they should not be allowed to exploit. And class struggle, even in socialism, class struggle is to be strengthened. So that this fight after the revolution also doesn't stop. Revolution is a continuous process. It doesn't stop. And then, when we decided in India that these are the classes, then we were very clear, it is a bourgeois landlord government with foreign finance capital. That is our characterization. Now, in this sense, our experience is, I'm not going into all history, coming to the major points only. When we split it from CPI in 1964, only 32 National Council members came out of the CPI and formed the Communist Party of India, Marxist. And immediately after that, our entire leadership, up to the district level, they were arrested and put behind the bars. For the first time, when we contested election in Kerala, we became the single largest party and we fought that election from behind the bars. We were attacked. This is another interesting thing. CPIM was attacked by both CPSU and CPC, politically, ideologically, and even physically. 64 we formed the party, and 69 the split came in CPIM. A section went out at the behest of CPC and formed another party. All that is history. But we continued our struggle. Our basic thing was what? No Communist party except Cuban party recognized us when we formed the party. We knew very well we don't want any recognition from any other Communist party or the ruling Communist party which have made this revolution successfully. The day we get the people's support, then only recognition comes. Revolution can be made by the people, not alone by the party. That is our conception. And gradually we grew and we formed government in 3 states, West Bengal and Tripura, Kerala. And we were growing. But attack on our party never stopped. We were continuously under attack by the ruling classes and their government. And imperialism also, imperialist forces also. Now, yesterday, comrade sitting there, he asked me a question. How is it after ruling 34 years in West Bengal, you lost? Very genuine question. Let me remind you, Comrade Jyoti Basu, when he was the chief minister, it is in 91, he was asking why people are supporting us, why they are voting for us, why should they vote for us? Why he raised this question? When we raised, Comrade, why are you asking such thing? I cannot understand why people are voting for us. Reason was what? We were running these governments and still we are running the Kerala government in a bourgeois framework. It is not a socialist framework. Under the bourgeois constitution, where the center has a right even to dismiss an elected government. And in 1957, the first majority government, Communist Party's government, came into being in Kerala and Comrade EMS Namboodiripal became the chief minister. We were having majority. For the first time, Article 356 was used because why? We knew what we had to do after coming to power in a state. Immediately, we started implementing our agenda. We did a land reform in a big way. Land was distributed to landless people. And these landlords, their land was taken, government surplus land, everything, and we distributed that land. Land reforms were done in Kerala. Similarly, other programs, the government got scared that they are implementing these things and they dismissed the government. So we had that experience. But despite that, in this Under bourgeois constitution, when you are running a government, there is a limit to which you can give relief to the people. Beyond that limit, you can't provide any relief to the people. It was not like Nepal, as the Communist Party got almost two-third majority at national level. We never got any opportunity, we never joined any government at national level. But then his situation was different. But in India, there is limitation of resources in the hands of state government. They depend mostly on central government. So in that system, it is impossible to continuously provide relief to the people. The second factor was what? And that is why Comrade Jyoti Basu used to say, now this limit of giving relief is over. We did certain things. It was not free education at that time. To raise this question of education, we made the education up to 12th level compulsory and free. Similarly on health question, we raised this thing. And we, for the first time in India, introduced a 3-tier panchayat system, decentralization of power. And with that, poor people, they got control of panchayat, they got budgetary provisions, they were strengthened, and all landlord and suppressing classes, they were isolated. So when we started all these things, there is a limit. Now what to do next? What to do next? Because central government is not allowing to do that. Main thing, we cannot have any international treaty, we cannot have any other thing. All laws are made by only state subject. State government can pass a law. But that law is to be approved by the center, by governor, until he signs. That cannot become law. And central government appoints governors. And they work as their central government's agents. Many of our laws which were made, passed by assemblies, were not approved by the central government. He refused. He will send to the president for consideration and they will keep it in cold storage. So there is a limit. How long we can provide things. That was the question haunting us at that time. How long? The second main reason was there was an uneven development of communist movement in India. We came to power in 3 states. One is in the extreme south, one is east, 2 are in east, and in rest of the country we were very weak. So, in isolation, how to survive? How long we can survive? With these 2 main factors, how to survive? Only answer was build movement in rest of the country. That is was the agenda, and that is our agenda. And that is why, after 34 years of rule, there is an anti-incumbency factor also. But one thing is there. You know how Modi government is functioning. If anybody, any political party, raise any question or they dissent, they go against them, they just use central agencies like CBI, ED, IT, these central agencies, and arrest them, involve them in false cases and etc. And most of the bourgeois leaders are vulnerable due to the corruption. The way they have made money, so they are scared, vulnerable, and they come under pressure and join BJP. It is very interesting thing, the majority BJP Lok Sabha members are not from RSS background or BJP's original background. They are the leaders who have joined from other parties, mostly Congress. But we ruled for 34 years in West Bengal and for 35 years after emergency in Tripura. Not even a single leader they could find against whom any corruption charge or any case like that, you see. Otherwise, had we indulged in that kind of corruption, we would have been finished by now. So now, That is the reason in isolation we couldn't survive there. And then obviously, third major factor, I'm frankly telling you, we also committed certain mistakes. When we face this dilemma in West Bengal, what next? We are giving education. Now the most of the population is educated, young generation is coming, they are educated, qualified, they want jobs. How to create jobs? Only answer was industrialization. When we started this industrialization, to create jobs, we did a mistake. We thought just 6 months before, it is in 2006 when the election took place. After 6 months, we started this campaign of acquiring land from peasants for industrialization. So one section of the peasants opposed that in that area. Earlier also we had acquired land from peasants and then for industries. But at that time, Comrade Jyoti Basu, what our party was doing, before notifying the intention of acquiring land, we used to go to villages, hold meetings, tell them, brief them about everything, the compensation, rehabilitation, and how they will get jobs, etc. And after taking them into confidence, then only we used to do that. But after 2006, without doing this groundwork, we started acquiring land. And that proved Singur, you know, and Nandigram. That was a, and Comrade Jyoti Basu was furious. He was old, then how could you do that? Without taking them into confidence, you are acquiring land. So immediately, he said, no, we will not acquire. But in Singur, it was acquired already. So with this situation, there was a conspiracy. Another factor was that since this new liberalization started in 91 in India, globalization, privatization, these new policies, when this what became then we were opposing. And in 2004, Congress government led by Manmohan Singh was supported by us from outside. And we didn't allow Manmohan Singh government to whole hope go for privatization and this many policies we didn't allow them to implement. And we forced them to make laws to give guarantee to the people like and many relief, tribals, forest land. They did not have any title of their land. So, about tribals, about other things, many laws were. So, on the other hand, US was pressurizing Indian government to implement certain policy, and they were dependent to continue their government on us, and we didn't allow. So, American imperialism also got it. And the corporate houses of India, so it was a nexus of US imperialism, corporate houses, and obviously the other parties. And Mamata Banerjee, they projected her, that she is the lioness. And in that situation, there was an entire media, total media, started campaign against us. So in this situation, after 34 years, some people also get status quo. So in every state, it gets changed and so let us have a change this time. So that happened. But we committed certain mistake, as I told you, in handling this situation for industrialization, the way we started that thing, and because of that boomeranged on us. That is what has happened in West Bengal. Tripura, it was a conspiracy. There are 2 parliamentary seats from Tripura, Lok Sabha seat. And to win Tripura election, state election, BJP kept 1,000 crore rupees budget. And they purchased the entire Trinamool Congress party. Earlier it was Congress. Congress became Trinamool Congress, and then entire Trinamool Congress became BJP. So with this money power and media power, that is how they used election commissioners, defeated us. Now, we have got weakened, we are struggling. But we have not lost the sight. There are two ways of looking at a party's thing. One is electoral defeat or victory. That definitely that gives confidence also. And other thing is the capacity to strike at the enemy, conduct mass and class struggles. If you see the second part, it is only the left parties, communist parties, particularly we are the largest party in India, Communist Party. All movements you will find only red flag. Only challenge to neoliberalism, privatization, globalization is coming from the left. All other bourgeois parties, regional parties, they have come to the US pressure and corporate pressure and they are implementing the same policies. In Tripura, in Kerala, we are not implementing those things. We have given alternative policies, a framework of alternative policies in Kerala. And that is why with those alternative policies, now in every village you will find healthcare centers, dispensaries. We have the best medical care system, best medic in the country, in Kerala. We have built cooperatives. If price rise goes, cooperatives, government buy directly and through that system, they sell these vegetables or other items, all items on a cheaper rate. We have the best public distribution system in Kerala. So we started this alternative policy framework implemented. And that is how and why in Kerala, never in history, the same party came to power next time. After winning one election, in next election, the other party will come. LDF or UDF, led by Congress, UDF. LDF, led by CPIM. But this time, history was created. For the second time, we came to power in Kerala because of this framework. Now, when they saw this, Modi government and corporate houses, they are scared now. Somehow or the other, finish the left, finish communist parties. That is the whole effort. US as well as the Indian ruling classes. They must be finished and they are attacking us. But the more they are attacking, more we are conducting bigger and bigger mass struggles, class struggles. Now you see this Kisan movement. Now it started in June last year. And on 26th November, farmers came on the borders. They came on the borders. And since then, they are sitting there on National Highway, GT Road, Grand Trunk Road. On 4 borders, they are sitting. And up to 10 kilometer, 15 kilometer, they made pakka structures. Sitting day and night there only. Thousands in number. And it has spread in throughout the country. Now, in last 7 years, Modi government has never taken any decision back. And they had declared in parliament that agriculture minister in parliament said, oh, these peasants, we know they are not the peasants. They are communists. Can't you see red flags there? They are communists. We'll teach them a lesson. So, but what happened? They called Kisans, Khalistanis, Pakistanis, on China's behest, terrorists. They tried to defeat, isolate. But more and more they did this thing, attacked. Thousands of cases have been made against farmers, arrested. More than 700 peasants died on the roads during this movement. But they couldn't suppress the movement. That's the main thing which we are trying to do in India. As I said, that as far as this theoretical and strategic question is concerned, we think in India, revolution is to be done. How it will come? These are the enemies, then who will make the revolution? Working class in alliance with peasants, particularly the poor peasants, landless laborers, and with, of course, section of middle class until they will, under the leadership of working class, conduct the revolution. They will make the revolution. These are the classes, basic classes. We were trying to, this workers' peasants alliance, that is the core of that force which will make revolution in India. That alliance was not happening. But in this Kisan movement, that alliance has came into existence. workers supporting. Many, and now workers or peasants are on the roads. And finally, Modi government was forced to declare, declared that they are going to repeal this formulas, 3 formulas. But the movement is not withdrawn. It was made clear that no, it will not be withdrawn. It is not sufficient only to withdraw the bill. Our 3 major demands, until all three major demands are met, we are not going back to our homes. And that is going on. Now, in this situation, India, let me tell you, our constitution and democracy in India is in danger. It is under threat. Modi government has destroyed all constitutional institutions. Even Supreme Court is compromised. No rights to the people, constitutional rights, no democratic right, human rights, lynching, division in the Hindu, Muslim, attacks, lynching of Muslims, Dalits in the country, these mobs, they have created an army of lumpen, just fascist methods. Anybody can do anything to anybody. And so much so, now this National Security Advisor of India, Ajit Doval, he addressed IPS trainees, those who have completed their training and going to join the service. And he told them, now the time of old warfare is over. This is the 4th generation of war. That means what? Civil society can be manipulated, can be corrupted, can be bought over, and any foreign country can do this. And this is the method nowadays. So keep an eye on civil society. Don't allow civil society, and all those laws we are making, Parliament makes, that is final. And they are using Pegasus against opposition leaders, judiciary, officers, everywhere. And they are trying to convert India into a police state. Fascism is rising in India. These communal forces, right-wing forces, they want to completely destroy. They have declared almost every third leader of BJP and RSS declare every day that Manusmriti is our constitution. We don't accept this constitution. That's what they want. Now, in this situation, they think if communists are suppressed or they are finished, then there will be no opposition against these policies of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And US pressure is so much, and they have become junior partner of Indian monopoly bourgeoisie, corporate house. They have become junior partner of US. And under so much, now US is going for quads everywhere in every region and circle. And they have shifted their war zone from Afghanistan to India, Hindu Mahasagar. So that is the situation there. And in that, we are fighting, and that this peasant movement and all that, you will find this peasant movement has changed the narrative and of the country. And they tried their best to criminalize them. They said, oh, they are Sikhs, Sardars, Khalistani. That way they were trying to tell non-Sikh peasants, okay, don't go with them. They tried all their methods in last 1 year, but finally had to accept the defeat and repeal the laws. Now this movement has changed the narrative and put forward this corporate, okay, these are the real enemies. What we couldn't make people to understand, But through this farmer movement, that message has gone. And what was the slogan? Earlier, East India Company enslaved us, exploited us. Now it is West India Company. West India Company. अब अंबानी, अडानी, मोदी, शाह और मोहन भागवत. This is West India Company. So we will not allow West India Company to destroy our country. In UP, they tried their best to create communal rights during peasant struggle so that it can be defamed and they can suppress with force. But they couldn't do. Their communal polarization was undone. People came to understand, oh, you want to break our unity so that you can go through with these laws and you want us to fight with each other. No, we will not do that. You must remember in 2013, there was a huge communal riot in Muzaffarnagar. And on the basis of that, they won the UP election for the first time and got majority. And uske baad, after that 14 election, for the first time Modi came. So they have this last weapon in their hand. And now we are trying that all left parties in a unified manner, we discuss with each other and collectively we are fighting against this policy, against this government and against this attack. And apart from that, since people have realized that the country is going, the bourgeois parties also come up. And now around 20 parties, they are opposing it and they supported 20 parties, this Kisan movement also. Now, as far as impact of India to Nepal, yeah, there was a phase when Nepali communists and leaders used to say, we get inspiration from India. But now is the time that we say that we get inspiration from Nepal. But Nepali situation different. Your society is in the sense different because you have to identify your own class enemies against whom. Because without this system, present system, define whose rule is this. In whose interest it is working. What you need to do. So in every country, every communist party has to chalk out its own strategy, own tactics. We get benefit from each other's experience. But whole world is looking. And we have the information. RSS is very active in Nepal. Very active in Nepal. And with different names, many front organizations RSS has opened in Nepal. And they are trying. And they want Hindu Rashtra in Nepal with a Hindu Raja. That kind of system they want. And they want communist movement to be weakened in. Until communists are weakened, they are thrown out of power. Hindu Rashtra, it cannot become Hindu Rashtra. But one thing, and what I feel, I may be wrong, you see, you can enlighten me, that RSS and communal forces presence in Nepal and is undermined, underestimated. Because they are not big force in Nepal at this moment. That is a good thing. But at the same time, they are underestimated. Because how they work, secretly they work. And one day, it appears suddenly they become a big force. How? They create dozens of, hundreds of front organizations. Through them, they work. People don't realize what is happening in the society at grassroots level. But suddenly then they become a force. So this same method RSS is trying in Nepal also. And a political, ideological battle against communal forces, these forces is necessary in Nepal also. This is what we feel. Otherwise Nepal cannot be remain untouched. You remember how they tried to, Indian government, Modi government tried to block your declaration of this constitution. You remember that? No? That's there. So I think we can exchange our views, we can help in whatever manner we can help each other, and but basic work of all communists in every country is to strengthen mass movement and conduct class struggles and mobilize people. So that is what we are trying to do. No doubt we are weakened in comparison to what we were for some time, but we have corrected our mistakes also, and we are very cautious about it, and we are part of the society. We are part of the society. One question when comrade raised that whether we are a real communist or not. Yeah. So that we have to understand very clearly. Party is not above the people. Party doesn't exist in abstract. Party, communists are also part of this whole society. So whatever tendencies, trends, good or bad, exist in society, that gets reflected in our party also. But what we do, so that these alien tendencies, wrong tendencies, do not emerge, do not get strengthened in the party, every year we have a method of renewing the party membership. Every member has to get membership, party membership renewed, and then branch or committee of which she is a member discuss his work, assess his work, and then we use the instrument of criticism and self-criticism, and every year we drop many people from the party. Similarly, say for example, Lenin said, corruption comes with power. Corruption comes with power. If party is not conscious of it and fighting against this, then what happens? Nobody knows. And that is why, in this way, every year, because we enrolled in West Bengal for 34 years, we found at lower levels, so this trend of corruption also came. So what party did? When every year the people who indulge in such activity, they are removed from the party. No, we don't want. We don't want party member like that. We do that. And then we periodically conduct rectification campaigns in our party. It is the question of this with me. This caste question in India, caste oppression. You know, your society, I don't know how much it is there, but in India, caste system is such, and that is the way they are treated, so it gets reflected in the party also. Our attitude towards women, whether it is patriarchy, in outside we are communist, and at home we are patriarch. Yeah, like that you see, tribals, other people. So what? So we conduct rectification campaign, and we don't tolerate such things in our party. So this continuous rectification process against corruption, such practices, so that goes on. And that is in that process, many people at various levels, they get eliminated from the party, meaning thereby they are out of the party. That is how we try to defend our communist character in our party, you see. And that is why, that is the only reason, till today, neither Congress government nor BJP government could find any single thing on the basis of which the government or the agencies could blackmail or threat any communist, our party leader. That is the reason. So that we are conscious about against that, and all communist parties are expected to have some system so that alien tendencies, what is negative things in the society, they do not dilute our communist character or our class consciousness. Now this basic question of, as it's like a reconstruction of what? There are two ways of looking at it. This one way is the class angle, वर्गीय दृष्टिकोण. The moment you lose that class angle, you are derailed. वर्गीय दृष्टिकोण में जहाँ भी कमी आ जाएगी तो हम अपने रास्ते से भटक जाएंगे. What we have to analyze, as Lenin said, हर घोषणा, हर वक्तव्य के पीछे ये देखना चाहिए कि इस काम से, इस घोषणा से, इस नीति से, इस चीज से किस वर्ग को फायदा होगा और किस वर्ग को नुकसान होगा. In whose favor this policy is, this statement is, this declaration is, who it is going to benefit, whom it will harm. So that is the class angle. If we have a clear-cut class angle, our वर्गीय दृष्टिकोण बहुत साफ है, तो उसके then our analysis will also be correct. So that must not get diluted. As particularly, communists must be very cautious about this, that their class angles remain intact and they strengthen them. Now, we don't think that there is a possibility or need today of any international, communist international center. All parties, they cooperate and interact, exchange views, but neither possibility is there nor need is there according to our understanding of any communist, international communist center. We have regional consultation, South Asian parties consultation, then Asian parties consultation, like that European parties consultation. That mechanism we have right now in the world, on regional levels, you see, not world level. So in a year or 2 years we meet at regional basis and we discuss. International center, we don't think this mechanism of regional consultation is going on, and that is helping us. That is helping us. So what I can say, the Nepalese people should be made aware of what is happening in India and how it is dangerous to Nepal. If fascism comes in India, Nepal is not safe. Nepal is not safe. Already under threat. US and Indian state, the role they are playing right now. And similarly, we always try to inform our people through our weeklies, through our daily newspapers, etc., what is happening in Nepal. And there are so many questions nowadays are being raised about Nepal, and sometimes we are unable to answer. So I have come here to understand actually what is the Nepal situation, what is happening there, and because in party also people ask many questions. So I hope that Comrade and all of you, while interacting, you will enlighten me about your situation and the experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Joginder, Comrade, for sharing your party's struggle and how you have been fighting against neoliberal forces and imperialist forces. And just a quick comment on what you were saying about class lens. What we have been saying is that in our communist parties, the neoliberal dialectics on Dalit and women have been introduced in a way that Marxist party are played by a comrade capitalism. So we are fighting against it, and we are again saying that leftizing the left. Thank you once again. I know there are a lot of questions among our comrades who are listening to you. So we will move to question and answer session. Question and answer में जानुभन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ मैले अघि नै भने यहाँ विभिन्न दलका केन्द्रीय कमिटीका सदस्यहरू हुनुहुन्छ, पूर्व सांसद विदुर सापकोटा पनि हुनुहुन्छ र अब हामी क्वेसन एन्ड आन्सरमा जान चाहन्छौँ। एकदम लामो भूमिका नबादिकन केही कमेन्ट, क्विक कमेन्ट छ अथवा उहाँले सिचुएसन एनालाइज गर्दा नेपालको के छ भनेर क्विकली यहाँहरूको कुरा राखिदिनु होला र आफ्नो नाम पनि र केही इन्स्टिट्युसनल अफिलिएसन छ भने त्यो पनि भनिदिनु होला। हुन्छ, धन्यवाद।
I am Lal Bahadur Pakling, Office Secretary of Valley Special Province Committee, CPN-US. Also a representative of Trade Union Wing of CPN-US, CONIP, Confederation of Nepalese Professionals. I would like to put just two simple questions to Comrade Jogendra Sharma. When I remember the sad decision of Communist Party of India, I still feel very regret. Why the Jyoti Basu, when there was proposed to Jyoti Basu to be a Prime Minister, to form government of India headed by left leader, why the Communist Party of India, his party didn't approve this decision? Number one question. Next question, why the very popular student leader, Kanhaiya, decided all of a sudden to hug Rahul Gandhi. This is very surprising.
Come, we'll take 5 questions and get back. So
Okay,
maybe you
that's all. Another question is is to Dr. Khagendra Prasad.
for you too.
Yes, yes. When you mentioned that when the Communist Party left leader go to government, when they enjoy power, all of a sudden they change color like a lizard, chameleon, rapidly. What are the reasons behind that when our leaders used to change when they go to, when they enjoy power? That's all. Thank you very much.
Myself, Milan Rai. I am Vice General Secretary of All Nepal National Free Student Union, which is sister organization of Nepal Communist Party, Unified Socialist. My small query with Mr. Jogendra Sharma. In South Asian country, in Nepal, we have more than 50% population of Nepal are communist or left supporters. Today, our most important challenge is in India, why left movement are going to day by day in worse condition. We can see in India, new liberal party are winning elections, making government and ruling country and taking action with our comrades. Is it not a serious matter? Are you sleeping well? You have many more issues to carry as an agenda. Do you have any strategic plan for make strong communist party in India? And another, my question is, why you are not attracting youth and students in communist movements in India? Few months ago, we heard Kanhaiya Kumar joined Congress. Do you have any syndicate to block youth in your party?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to talk to us today. My name is Milan Chavan. I'm a member at the Standing Committee in All Nepal National Free Students Union. My question is about the left forces and the working classes in our region, South Asia. as you have stressed from the very beginning about Mao, that the first thing to road to socialism is about the class distinction, and you have stressed it from the very beginning to the end of your speech. Looking at the South Asia, we see the economy is quite similar. About 5 million of working people are in international labor migration from Nepal, and the scenario is quite similar in India. More than 100 million working class, the people that belongs to working classes are in labor migration. And we see that the working classes are so huge in these regions, but the labor forces are not so decisive. In India, we see the more number of working class people in working classes, but the force is not so decisive. And in Nepal, we see that the labor forces is so decisive, but the working classes is in foreign. So what's wrong? What's wrong is going in the communist movement, and what's wrong behind this irony? And the second question is about the communist movement and the youth, and why the communist movement is not catching the voices of youth. Are we lacking some innovations, some kind of some kind of creativity in the left movement, that the youth are leaving communist movement? As we see Comrade Kanhaiya Kumar, that many of our comrades who joined for his electoral campaigns as well, he is now he has left to Congress. That means, is that some vitality of creativity is lacking in communist movement, and how do you explain this? Thank you.
Namaste everyone, I'm Yogita Rai. I would like to introduce myself as a keen learner of Marxist. And my question goes to Joginder sir. He said there could be if there could be a rise in fascism in India, that could be a danger to Nepal. So what do you think? Is there already a rise in India, and has it invaded in Nepal? And also I would like to know Dr. Prashai's thought on it, because today, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, I was listening to his talk show, and he said that I wouldn't like to take a name, but certain leaders have the characteristic of fascist. So I would like his thought on it also. And my another question is, what are the major drawbacks of communism in 21st century? And the same questions like, what should be the major basis of communism in 21st century? Because we are now in the era of digitalization. So I'm definitely sure that the working class has changed a lot. I mean, so I would like to know both of your thoughts on this. Thank you so much.
I'm Rajesh Morning Valley. I'm working as a Central Committee member at Scientific Socialist Communist Party of Nepal, also working in the international department of this party. I have a question. What do you think about the parliamentary system, which is followed by, overwhelmingly followed by our Communist Party in India and Nepal also? Does this lead to our conceived socialist and communist system? This is my question to Joginder. Thank you.
It's me, Arjun Bikhi. So I'm from NOU. So my question goes to Joginder sir. So you have already said that Communist Party is itself the reflection of society. The society has good and bad qualities, vices and virtues. And my question is, what is the greatest enemy for communism or Communist Party? Whether greatest enemy, what is the greatest enemy for communism? Whether it is the lack of integrity, honesty, and then dedication, and then, or the corporate sector, or that capitalism that is evolving. What is the greatest enemy for communism? So thank you.
Okay, hello to everyone. I'm Abhishek Paule. I am currently a member at Secretariat, the sister organization of Communist Party of Nepal Unified Socialist. And my question is, with our leftist parties carrying the agendas of neoliberalism, and with us being invaded by the chronic capitalism, how long are we going to sustain the leftist movement on this region, on South Asia? Can you explain it to me with reference to the international practices and with some of the international examples? Thank you so much.
I am very grateful to the organizers and also very grateful to Sarma Sarva. Just I don't know all areas of this program, but I just came. So I have only one question. What are you thinking about the fourth international movement and also about South Asia, Asia, and we know that here in Nepal, also in India, so there are many communist party, but why couldn't we unite? What is the reason behind that? Why couldn't we come under one flag? And it is the very serious issue, I think. Thank you.
Farce or tragedy is said by, once wrote by Marx, that the tendency of fascism, we explained, it is on.
Okay, good.
The tendency of fascism that you explained in India, that is slightly coming, or as Yogita said, that invading to Nepal, and whether it is tragedy or farce, that the leader of Communist Party, who is heading one faction of the Communist Party, is showing that attitude. And we are fighting against those tendencies towards fascism. So you came here, I think you will go to Chitwan as well, and I think you know all the disputes within the Communist Party, this thing. How you see this right-wing tendency within the Communist Party, how it has been arisen, and what might be the solution?
I think it is the question not only of the left or general public that India establishment basically sees Nepal as chote bhaiya, like trying to be badi bhaiya, you know, the Indian attitude. And we're kind of tired with that attitude, and that was seen when there was economic blockade. And each time when there is even be that the leftist Indian or anyone coming here, the sentiment goes, you know, like back saying that, oh, you're treating us like chote bhaiya. So how are you taking this issue, and how is your party fighting back? Like, no, there should be a public-to-public relation, and there should be equality among us. Do you have a comment? So we'll first hear quickly from Dr. Khagen Prasad, because there was some question, and I will get back to you, and then our chair.
So the first question is, why do our leaders, when they are in power, take a U-turn, right? विभिन्न एङ्गलबाट कारणहरू खोज्न सकिन्छ, तर ऐतिहासिक भौतिकवादी विज्ञानबाट तपाईले कारण खोज्नु हो भने दुई तीनवटा म अहिले भन्न सक्छु। धेरै कारणहरू त्यसको अध्ययन जरुरी छ। पहिलो कुरो त तपाईको कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी जो हिजो पावरमा थियो त्यसको वर्ग आधार कमजोर थियो। त्यहाँभित्र मजदुर र किसानको संख्या ठुलो भइदिएको भए सदस्यताको हिसाबले, हैन, केन्द्रीय कमिटीदेखि तलका कमिटीमा साँच्चैको मजदुर र साँच्चैको किसानको सदस्यता ठुलो हुन्थ्यो भने नेतालाई तिनको प्रतिबद्धता छोडेर तिनलाई छोडेर तपाईले भने जस्तो यति उम्नीमा जान सम्भवै हुँदैन थियो। एक त्यसैले अघि उहाँले कमरेडले भन्नुभयो वर्ग एंगल, त वर्ग पार्टीको वर्ग कम्पोजिसनले तपाईको वर्ग पक्षधार गुमाउँदै जान्छ। जहिले पनि पार्टीमा त्यो वर्गका मान्छेहरू धेरै छन् भने पार्टी त्यो वर्गमा बसिरहन्छ, धोका दिन सम्भव हुँदैन, भोलिपल्ट निकालिदिन्छ पार्टीबाट उसलाई। त्यसैले एउटा मुख्य प्रश्नै भनेको क्लास स्ट्रगलको हो, र क्लास स्ट्रगल भनेकै वर्गको वर्चस्व कायम गर्ने हो। त्यही चाहिँ मूल कारण हो भन्छु म। अब पुँजीवादको ताकत यस्तो बलियो छ कि त्यसले तपाई कस्ता 25 वर्ष जेल पसेका मान्छेलाई गलाइदिन्छ, लत्याकलुतुक बनाएर हराइदिन्छ। अर्को कारण त्यो छ किनभने तपाईसँग त्यो पुँजीवादलाई फेस गर्ने, रेजिस्ट गर्ने वर्ग पछाडी छैन नि त। तपाईको वर्ग त 60 लाख मलेसियामा छ, या मलेसिया भनेको मैले विदेशमा छ, अनि तपाईलाई सपोर्ट गर्ने वर्ग नभएपछि त्यसको वरिपरि। ओके, द अदर क्वेसन वाज कन्सर्निङ द राइज अफ फासिस्ट टेन्डेन्सीज। Maybe I repeatedly said in my interview, it was about some kind of fascist, so to speak, which you can characterize them as a fascist tendency. Not a soft kind of fascism, though it seems that Nepal cannot allow hard kind of fascism, because even Panchayati era was not able to be fascist in a strict sense that the Nazi and other Mussolini became fascist. Our Panchayati ruler could not be fascist in that sense. King Gyanendra tried, he failed. Girija Prasad tried to be kind of, fascism is a consolidation of power in one or few hands, worship of leaderships, no agenda, few agenda for propaganda, which you can observe in all parties, maybe in some of the parties, though not in all parties. if a leader feels that all power must be concentrated and the entire community system should be suspended in order to consolidate your power, then that is a fascist tendency. If you think that all state machinery should be captured, or perhaps democratically, like Indira did in India democratically, which in a past election. So fascism does not mean there is no election. Fascism can come through election, and for your surprise, Hitler actually came to power through election. Mussolini was a different thing, but Hitler actually came to power through elections. So elections and Mahadivation, they do not actually challenge fascism. Sometimes they consolidate fascism, and perhaps that is what is happening in some of our parties. So consolidation of power, and what you do is you infuse or insert some religious elements into your politics. Right? You examine that carefully and objectively. This is just my opinion. If you insert some religious elements, Ram Mandir, like in India, and then you give money to some religious temples, and what do you become? Aren't you on the path of fascism, which basically just stopped? Because Nepal history has shown that it cannot tolerate hard type of fascism, which Germany witnessed, and which perhaps so India is actually kind of giving rise to. But even in India, because democratic institutions are still alive to some extent, like hardcore fascism has not been successful, right? So that is the case. So I raised my argument here today. So I think that was just for. That is the question for me. So, and then I request Comrade Jogendraji to try to answer some of the questions that our comrades have raised. Perhaps within, I guess, 15 minutes would be. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
As far as this question about Comrade Jyoti Basu not being allowed to become Prime Minister in 1996, yes, very frankly, I'm telling you, there was discussion. Special CC meeting was called, and there was vertical division in the Central Committee. With the voting of 4 or 5 or 6 maximum, decision was taken that we should not join the government. So people thought this is not a good decision. And then again it was discussed in our party congress. Party congress also vertically divided, but with majority decided the decision not to join the government was correct. That was the party's decision. Retrospectively, whether that was the even party congress decision, correct or not, I can't say anything. But that is true. As far as Kanhaiya is concerned, yes, Kanhaiya is popular among youth, and he has the capability to influence people, argumentative and knowledgeable person. All that is true. And you know the background of how we came into limelight. But don't think it was only alone. Entire left movement and JNU was behind that. And he was put in jail. He was not in our party. He was from All India Student Federation, which is the student front of CPI, and he was in CPI. To be honest, I'm telling you, in our party, it is not possible for a person to become a member of the Central Committee. One has to earn it by hard work and through experience and contribution, what you have made to the party, sacrifices you made in the party. And we have a small Central Committee, total around 100. But CPI made him co-opted him in the National Council. Made him the National Council member, gave him the ticket for Lok Sabha seat from this Bihar, and provided him. It is not that he alone, but all organization together. Okay, we will use him if he is becoming popular. Arrange meeting for him, give him platform, everything was done. But what comment I can make, if a person, capable person, after losing the election, he lost the election, could not win. After losing the election, decides to join Congress party. Their General Secretary, Comrade D. Raja, CPI General Secretary, and issued a statement that few days before only, he assured the party, no, it is all bogus speculation. It is speculation now, I am not betraying the party, I will not join the Congress. But after 4 or 5 days, he joins Congress party. So, General Secretary of CPI, Comrade D. Raja, issued the statement, so much opportunity and platform was given to a young person just coming from the university and getting so much in the party. But if one person decides, I can't comment on that, perhaps he thought he has a better future in Congress. But Congress, it should be understood properly. Congress is not an ordinary party, it represents the bourgeois landlord interest. Now, Indian left, I won't go in detail. In short, I'll tell, it is our weakness that has such a huge number of working class, recently such a big country. We failed to develop communist movement in the rest of the country. We are struggling hard, we are doing our best, and now you see, at least 4 years hard work is behind this Kisan movement. It is not some sudden thing. And to bring more than 500 peasants organization on one platform, have coordination with different ideological tones and background, not an easy thing. It was not. So it is with a hard work this has happened, and it has a clear-cut left content. Total agenda, Kisan movement, is the left agenda. So we are trying, but I am not going to justify this and that. But one factor I want to mention, but that is again our weakness. I am frankly saying, no if, but बहानेबाजी कुछ नहीं. और इधर उधर का अगर नहीं झांकेंगे हम, ईमानदारी से बता रहे हैं, that in your society it is not that much, but in India, this caste system is so strong. You see, a worker who is a member of our trade union organization, even office bearer, fighter, every day keeps red flag, union red flag with hammer sickle in his hand. But when he goes to his village or in his area and vote question comes, he vote on the caste lines. That is happening. कॉमरेड जी ठीक है, लेकिन वो अपना बिरादरी का है ना, उसका दबाव आ गया. You understand? This casteism, and after VP Singh's government, when he introduced one part of Mandal Commission and reservation for OBCs, the movement then started against reservation for OBCs. That further strengthened this caste system and caste conflict in India. And caste-based parties came into being. Whether Ramvilas Paswan, Lalu Yadav, Mulayam Singh Yadav, Mayawati, Kashi Ram, like Maratha Party, Meena, on reservation question, they put people against each other. If one section says that we should be declared tribal, another tribal section, no, if they are included, we will throw you out of power and we will not vote for you, and they come to conflict, even violent conflicts, and how Dalits are being treated. So these are the questions. So that has weakened. Even in certain areas, I tell you, votes. We have more members of our mass organization, Kisan Sabha, trade union, youth, student, etc. But we do not get that number of votes even. Voting on caste line, everything okay, voting on caste line. We so far have failed to confront this caste system, but we are for last 6-7 years trying our best to combine class struggle with the struggle against caste oppression and discrimination. That is how we are trying to do. How we will succeed or what happened finally I can't say. But in one word I say, we couldn't spread our movement and mass base throughout the country. That is our weakness, our failure, and we are struggling with that. How to overcome these weaknesses. But this youth and attracting youth or not attracting, no, you see, again, that is not the question. When this caste system comes, you see, and when this criminalization takes place, then people get swayed. People get swayed momentarily, and then they get derailed also. But the way youth should join our party, there are two factors. One, the way Marxist ideology, dream of socialism, the way it used to inspire young generation, today that weapon is no more available. Marxism, at large, people, new generation, very few know about it. So that inspiring ideological force that has weakened after the collapse of Soviet Union and in Eastern Europe. That collapse after that. So that is also one reason. Okay, what you are doing is okay. What your policy is okay. But Marxism. Then another thing happened with new liberalism. I don't know how it is happening in your society. We have found after 91, when this policy framework came into being, that the generation which came up after that, that generation, despite being educated, graduate, postgraduate, but socially, culturally, and politically are illiterate. They don't know even history of India. They are so self-centered now. Yes, America jana hai, ye karna hai. So that way, young generation, and particularly the middle class, we have noted. In middle class, there is a big section in the middle class. In this phase of new liberalism, got benefited because of these policies. They are well paid. Certain policies, they give them facility. Okay, have car loan, have house loan, everything. So they get all that stuff. So they think that this policy framework is good for them. Now they are feeling the pinch. Now, after Modi government, when petrol has gone up to 120 rupees per litre, 115 rupees per litre, when the price rise is so much. Now they are, and this COVID, it has destroyed our economy completely. This economy was destroyed by Modi himself, by notebandi kiya tha. Lot of 23% of unemployment. Now the middle class, particularly middle class, goes in colleges and universities. And from that section, cadre used to come, they used to get inspiration from this ideology, and through movement they used to come. But now, they don't go, and they don't only how to make career. So that is also problem. So we are aware of that, the way youth should be attracted towards party, and we are paying special attention to that now. And we are getting results. Now in Kerala, in Bengal, and in Punjab, and in Haryana, and in Uttar Pradesh, big chunk of youth is coming to the party. Big chunk. That's it. I told you in the beginning, who is the biggest enemy against whom we are fighting? US imperialism and corporate houses and their allies. They are our biggest enemies. Big bourgeoisie. Big bourgeoisie and your imperialism. These are the two enemies. And those who are aligned with them, they are the enemies. We are very clear about that. I think
Thank you, comrade. They say
What
that.
question they had? As far as this unity question comrade asked about why communist movement is not unified in India, was that the question? Yeah. You see, we are unified in the sense that we have complete coordination with 5 parties, CPIM, CPI, CPIML, All India Forward Bloc, and then RSP, the Revolutionary Socialist Party, and we meet regularly, discuss, and we have joint actions and all that. As far as this question of unity between CPI and CPIM, this question many times came. So we decided, better right now we have common understanding, joint movements, and we put together, we move ahead. And in this process, when other political ideological issues is something which is resolved, and what should be the organizational practices, etc., all that will also be resolved. Only then unity has got some meaning. So, and you have seen, you got united in Nepal. It was a big inspiration for us, and we were looking forward. Not only we, entire world was looking towards that. Now, Communist Party got almost 2/3 majority, but what happened? No, later on, that unity could not be retained. Could not be retained. So we thought, at that time also in symposium when was held, on international symposium was held in Nepal. At that time that question was put to me, also, उस time also. But then I'll reply, कि your condition is alert. In your country situation is different. You could unite. Actually, you are in a position to capture the state power through democratic election. And you saw that opportunity, and then opportunity united you. So situation was different. Conditions were different. In India, that is not the situation. We believe in unity, we move towards that, but principled unity on all issues, organizational, ideological, political.
Enemy is a Dutch Pantha Observad, which is the right-wing opportunism. And if you go to Chittor, I think you will get to see the view or glimpse of, we assume that, you'll get to see that. Anyways.
Your question is left.
No,
Big brotherly.
we can discuss over the snack.
You see, our party's position is very clear. I came here to attend this Nepali Congress convention. In that public meeting, I said, that was the time of blockade. Our party condemned the blockade. Our party raised this question in the parliament. And here, as far as CPIM is concerned, we don't believe in big brother or small brother. We consider Nepalese comrades and Nepali people our twin brothers. Twin brothers. That's all. That's all.
So, आजको कार्यक्रमको अध्यक्षलाई चाहिँ मैले समापन मन्तव्यको लागि दिनुभन्दा अगाडि किनभने उहाँको लागि पनि सानो प्रश्न राखेर मात्र मैले चाहिँ उहाँलाई समापनको लागि दिनेछु we believe that your visit to Nepal is to strengthen our dialogue, regional dialogue of the left. So we have a small token of love, and you can see there is a fist which says that more power to us. So I'd like to request Dr. Khagendra Prasad, President of FCD, to hand over this to Comrade Jogendra Sharma and also to our chair. Thanking them for their service. Also to Comrade Jagannath Khatioda. Thank you.
Solidarity is not only international, it's sometimes it's domestic also.
के युवाहरू आकर्षित हुने क्रममा छन् भने यहाँहरूको के मुद्दा छ जसको कारणले गर्दा धेरै युवा साथीहरू धेरै चाहिँ पब्लिकहरू चाहिँ यो पार्टीमा लाग्नुपर्छ र यो मुभमेन्टमा चाहिँ कस्तो कन्ट्रिब्युसन गर्ने चाहिँ यहाँहरूको चाहिँ त्यो योजना छ छोटोमा त्यो भनेर चाहिँ आजको कार्यक्रम समापन पनि गरिदिनु होला धन्यवाद
म क्वेसन आएको हुनाले सरल नेपालीमा बोल्न मन लाग्यो सबभन्दा पहिले यति राम्रो स्पिच डेलिभर गर्नुभयो कमरेड जोगिन्दरले थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच टु कमरेड जोगिन्दर फर भेरी गुड इन्सपिरेसनल डेलिभर डाक्टर खगेन्द्र फ्लुएन्टली उहाँले आफ्ना कुराहरू राख्नुभयो छिटो छिटो यति छिटो नभनिदिएको भए अलि धेरै बुझिन्थ्यो कि जस्तो मेरो लाग्यो। अर्को पटकका लागि अलि ढिलो बोलेर धेरैलाई सुनाउनेतिर गरिदिनु भए राम्रो हुन्छ भन्ने मलाई लाग्यो। दोस्रो, बेसिकल्ली हामी केमा छौँ भने म 2-3वटा एक्सपिरियन्स सुनाउन चाहन्छु। Before the general election of Bangladesh, I was in China for 10 days visit. At that time, all left-wing parties from South Asia were in China. The topics of China visit was left-wing conference. At that time, we discussed about Bangladesh. All Bangladeshi communists and left were there. 9 or 10 participant groups were there. We discussed about the general election of Bangladesh. They told me, they assured that we will be jointly go in election. No doubt, many times they repeated it. My friends who are in Bangladesh, now I am asking them, why did it? Finally, they went to some parties, to Sheikh Hasina and some Begum Khalida. Why you join with them? I asked them and they told me that we get unsuccess. One thing, the reason was, the regional power was playing a role to divide them. The first Constituency Assembly of Nepal that was running, 601 Parliament Constituent Assembly members were there. At that time, secretly one report was made. It was very surprisingly. More than 200 Constituent Assembly was directly or indirectly a kind of agenda raw out of 601. It was very secret. We try to find out who are they. Very dangerous. If I tell the name, I cannot live in Nepal. Such type of dangerous situation now in Nepal. It is continuously going on. Some agents playing the role, vital role in Nepalese politics. Different countries are investing their monies for this region. Just I want to share this experience, these secrets with you, that you and we all are the bona fide pillar of the nation to contribute left movement and to make strong left movement. मेरो विचारमा, we have very serious challenges in our country in this present context. One context, Comrade Joginder told us, expressed us that RSS, which is playing a role in Nepal very seriously, making small organization all over Nepal, and they want to establish a Hindu fundamental phenomena in Nepal. Yeah, it is a very serious question. Another one serious design is here that Christianity mission is also growing very highly. This is another serious thing. In the same time, I think that all divisionist forces are also actively playing role in different sections. Another thing also we have to keep in our mind that the citizenship issue, nagarikta videyak, जसलाई हामी भनिरहेका छौँ, that is very crucial to protect national sovereignty. It will guide us to the population politics and always going to very dangerous situation like Fiji, etc., etc. Another one point I want to add here that the MCC it is not a simple thing. It is not only the question of some millions, billions. It is very serious thing. The Indo-Pacific strategy wants to hold Nepal under his security umbrella. These very peculiar but serious topics we have to deal. We have to protest. Otherwise, we cannot protect our socialism and socialist movement and communism also. It is my opinion. What you think? Please try to analyze what is the serious matter going undercurrent in the Nepalese politics. Another one thing, finally, I want to share that the reconstruction of our mind and re-innovation, the class struggle and the class position of Nepal is the conclusion of the strengthening communist movement in Nepal. That's why let us try to reconstruct our vision, our mission and our tactics. One thing, Karuna Madam asked me one question, that was what is the policy to attract youth in your party? First of all, I want to say that we have to be clear about ideological frame, where we want to go. Really want to go through socialism for people, to the people. That's why if we are people and we want to represent the people, at that time we can make very good plans also. In this time, the CP&US, NCP-US, basically we say NCP-US, Unified Socialist, we want to represent a new generation really. In this moment, I want to remember that Comrade Joginder tomorrow is going to deliver his congratulations, his speech in CP&UML 10th conference. We always told Waliism. What is Waliism? The Waliism is there is one part of Waliism that is going towards fascism. So that I would like to request you, if possible, you have to explain what is fascism, how fascism controls the national agencies, and how it goes to the society to devastate communism. It has to be explained in that session also. Because we always fought against Waliism, because he was starting fascism when he was in government and chairperson of our party. Now, let us think about, again, we have to discuss about the discourse of communism, communist movement, the socialism, and the FCT has initiated such type of programs. Many programs it has completed. Thank you very much to FCT. Then after, we have to try to make a regional cooperation communist team. I think so. Time to time to discuss, not only attending any conference and deliver the speech, but time to be discussing about the communist failure, about success, about experience, about our problem, everything. Just like we serve to the society, like that, we can do many things in South Asian region. That's why Joginder Comrade is a senior leader in his party. He also can think about it and discuss in his central committee too. Okay. In the conclusion, everybody who are here and very highly appreciated and participated in the program, in the discussion program also you joined. Everybody, very, very thank you very much. And I want to finish this session in, not only finish. I want to end this session this time. Thank you very much. Lal Salam.